Proverbs. Proverbs are kind of these short sayings, and that's sort of the way that we're doing it. They provide a lot of good general spiritual truths to each and every one of us. And, you know, they're almost, a lot of them kind of like object lessons, so to speak. And you know, the author here, which is mostly in most fields of Solomon, uses comparison, analogies, and, you know, likenesses, and lots of different ways of teaching these truths. But like I say, there is a lot of wisdom to be gained from studying these, and again, you know, trying to apply them in our lives. Last week we started in the 16th chapter. I want to start on verse 8 tonight. Again, just encourage you, you know, if you have something that you want to add to it or say, just jump right in and share, because that'll make us have a good study. But it starts out, and like I said, you know, more than once, some of these things are pretty repetitive. I notice even in this 16th chapter, there in verse 25, it actually repeats the Proverbs back over in Proverbs 14:12, where it says, "There's a way that seemeth right, and a man," exact same words, you know, used there again, being repeated again. But verse 8, it says, "Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues without right," or without righteous, probably is what the thought is. Other words, few possessions with righteous, you know, is better than revenue, carries the thought of gain, is what it does, or wealth. And that's kind of what the Proverbs saying in there. And you know, it's better than great gain or wealth that's got in an unjust way. And they probably are, a lot of wealth being got in an unjust way, even in this day and age as we speak. Sometimes you see in these drug busts, you know, you'll see the cash and stuff that a lot of these characters, and boy, they're characters. Most of them, you know, when it puts their pictures in the paper, they'll have a large amount, you know, of cash that they even seize. And I've noticed in the paper the last few days, and especially it seems like over there in Ohio, Marietta, they're just constantly getting these yahoos. They're coming from Detroit and Columbus, and all of these different places out here selling this dope. And you know, getting great gain from doing it, because these people that's hooked on this stuff, I mean, I've dealt with one or two of them. They'll sell their tools, they'll sell anything that they can get if they're hooked on that stuff to get it. So you know there's no negotiations in the price of it. They just pay whatever as long as they can get it. That's just the way they do. That's a huge big old problem that we got, but I couldn't help but to think about that. You know, these revenues are great gains, like the proverb is saying there, better is just a little with righteous than great gains or revenues without right, or doing it in an unlawful or an ungodly way and doing that. So that probably maybe kind of looks at, you know, again, great gain. When you think of that word there, it can be such a, well, just, I mean, it's almost like when you study the Bible, great gain a lot of times is just really a hindrance to righteousness. It just really, really is. That's the reason probably even when Paul was talking there, 1 Timothy, the 6th chapter, about, you know, the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some have they coveted after, they've erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. And, you know, over and over again, the Bible talks of, you know, the hindrance that can be in one's life. And boy, we live in a society, you know, that I sometimes even think that this stock market thing, I think they even manipulate that. I really, really believe it, you know, and it's all about about gain. It's all about making, some quick money or whatever in doing that. So, and I suppose you could almost say there's a little bit of unjust in what's even going on in a lot of that. So we just need to be content with what God's allowed us to have and exercise ourselves unto godliness. I know Paul, when he was writing there, always liked these words there, what he's saying. But godliness and contentment is great gain. He's saying that. Speaking of great, contentment is great gain. If a person can just be halfway, satisfied in life. Paul said we brought nothing into the world. It's certain that we're going to carry nothing out. So having food and raiment, let us be therewith content in doing that. So anyway, that maybe said too much on that. But anyway, verse 9, or Proverbs 9, a man's heart, and when I was even reviewing some today, this goes along so much with even verse 1. It really does. A man's heart devises his ways. And the word devise there in the Hebrew carries the thought to fabricate something. To fabricate it or to plot it out. To plot it out or devise. And, even in the crime world, you hear it was premeditated. They plotted it all out. Planned it out. So again, devises his way. But again, the Lord directed his steps. And what I wanted us to see last week in that was this God involvement. And God is very much involved. I think He's very much even involved in the lives of those that's maybe not even really give their life to the Lord. There's God is sovereign. And there's a plan there. He's putting things together. But, thank the Lord that He's given us an option to be a part of a good plan. He's got a good working plan for us. And that working plan is found in God's Word. But yes, this verse, it kind of parallels verse 1. Devises in the Hebrew, again, carries that thought to fabricate or to plot out or to plan. The Lord, though, He kind of determines the outworking of that plan. That's kind of what the thought is. In that particular proverb. Or that's what I kind of see in that.
It's kind of interesting because it says the heart of man plans.
Yeah.
And you can plan all you want to, but it says the Lord establishes.
Yeah.
There's a great deal of difference between planning something and something being established.
That's exactly
And it
right.
shows His power and superiority
Yeah.
over the situation.
Sure does. Shows His involvement in it. That really does. When you read the Bible, you even see those nations that was ungodly. God was just like old Cyrus there. When you read about him, God raised him up and literally was going to use him to bring the nation of Judah back out and allow them to come back and to rebuild that temple. When you read Ezra and Nehemiah, some of those, and God was working in his life to bring that about. And so the Bible just over and over again shows that. Shows God how sovereign He is. And I know we really get upset about a lot of things, and rightly so. But boy, He's in control. He's working things out. And I don't think that means we need to throw up our hands and not try to do anything. We need to try to get people into God's good plan. That's what we not need to try to do. Anybody else on that? Like I say, on that particular verse, because even at the first verse there, the preparation of the heart. Again, the plans of the heart in man and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. That's kind of, so I seen that as a little bit of man's very limited in his ability to plan out his life. What we plan and what actually happens, it can very well be coming from the Lord. Is kind of the fault. So again, God is much involved. He's much involved. You probably wouldn't be here tonight if you hadn't been involved in your life. thank God you chose to even come here. You know, and God's involved in our lives way before. He commended his love toward us while we were yet sinners. He was involved in us when we were sinful. You know, God's involved in it. So again, verses 10 through 15 now, it's probably more, maybe related a little more to the culture of that day, because it starts dealing with kings. And you know, Solomon, the writer of these Proverbs, was such. He was actually a king himself. But when you read those verses, you could almost maybe read them all together, but it does deal with kings. And even verse 10 there says, a divine sentence is in the lips of the king, is in the lips of the king. His mouth transgresseth not in judgment. So first of all, you see here, it's dealing with the king's speech. It's like a divine sentence. It's probably, and you know, boy, when you read the kings, they could just say something, you know, and they could have people put to death. They could do whatever, you know. They had tremendous, tremendous power in doing that. So it again, it's probably dealing with the king's speech. It's like a divine sentence. His words must not transgress in judgment is maybe what you need. In other words, the words of a leader, you know, it has very much effect on others and even the outcome of others. And the king was definitely in authority in that particular day. And I couldn't, you know, even in our, well, even in, you know, in our government, there's, and even in the religion realm, you think of the power that the Pope has, even almost the worldwide, you know, his words, and things like that. So again, you can, like I say, these verses probably deal in verse 11 goes on, and I'll kind of run through these, and then we can, if you got things, we can. Says a just weight and a balance are the Lord's. All the weights of the bag are His work. Now, what is He doing there? If you'd probably put that within the context of this, in other words, the king should be very concerned with just weights and with balance. There ought to be a fairness, because again, well, it's just like us. We serve the Lord. And you know, God is a just God. He's just in His weights. He's just in His balances. And you know, God asks us to be the very same thing. Just like the king. You know, the king was really responsible to God. He was. Most of them didn't see that. You know, because I've read those. In fact, Mary, I finished reading 2 Kings through, but then you go in, if you read the Bible, kind of, well, I don't read it the last few years, I don't read it straight through, but you know, you read 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, and you do a lot of repeating of the same messages. But boy, when you do a little study and an outline on those kings, my, how far so many of them was away from the Lord. How far they were away from the Lord. And you know, there was instructions for kings, even like Solomon himself. When you read the section in the book of Deuteronomy, I mean, about multiplying wives and things, it was right there. Solomon ought to have known what he was doing was absolutely in direct violation of God's word, and of even written God's word in the law. But he chose to go ahead because other nations, kings, they multiplied wives, and he chose to do that, and that turned his heart from the Lord. So anyway, you know, if you kind of take verse 11 within this context, the king should be concerned with just weights and balances, which the Lord is also. In other words, the Lord is the source of honesty and justice, and the king should be so in his dealings with others. He should be that same way. Probably goes back a lot to what's even missing today is that responsibility that leaders has to God. It's just like the position I'm in over at church. My biggest responsibility is to the Lord. It's to the Lord. And it's the same way that someone's in a governmental position. If they're a believer, they should understand even government has that responsibility to God. They just do. And that's principles there that the Bible teaches. So verse 12, it goes on and kind of, it is an abomination to kings to commit wickedness, for the throne is established by righteousness. And you know, when did the nation of Israel, who was kind of the leader when suddenly they wanted kings? Who was kind of leading that nation? Who was the major prophet at that time? It was Samuel, yeah. You know, it was when they rebelled, it kind of broke Samuel's heart. They wanted to change the nation almost from a theocracy into a monarch or into kings. Because why they want to do it? Because the other nations have it. And you know, Samuel tried to warn them against that. And then, like I say, when you do a pretty detailed study of 1 Kings and 2 Kings, you just see how corrupt and how bad they were. And they had such control, you know. Now, there was some of them sought prophets and sought divine guidance, you know, in their kingship or in their time of ruling over the nation of Israel or over the nation. The nation of Israel had very, very few kings that was any good at all. Judah had a lot more good kings. But boy, oh boy, it was just kind of a pretty sad part of history. It really, really was. So, and what made it sad is because the wickedness and the stuff that they allowed to go on during that time. So, you know, basically what's verse 12 is saying? It's an abomination, it's disgusting, it's repulsive. That's what it is the thought that's probably being carried right there. It's disgusting, it's repulsive to kings to commit wickedness. For the throne, again, it's established by righteousness. It's established by righteousness. So, again, you know, his throne was established, or the throne supposedly was established by righteousness. I had in my old Bible, and I might just quickly share this with you because I couldn't help but to think of kings during this much, but in my old Bible, you know, in the Scofield Bible, it lists all the kings in there. You know, it gives a summary of all the kings of the nation of Israel. Basically, it gives a summary it gives, you know, the kings. Of course, the first king was Saul, and then, of course, David comes along, and Solomon comes along. And then the kingdom divides. It divides. And then there's just numerous kings, you know, for a period of some 400 years. And my lands, I went down through, the nation of Israel. I could just quickly name Nadab, Baasha, Elah, Zimra, Omri, Ahab. All of those were bad kings. Ahaziah, Jehoram, Jehu, Jehoaz. And then finally we've got Joshua. Let's see. Joshua is actually a good king. Yeah. And then in my list, out of all those kings, which covers a period of 210 years, the Bible lists only one. That was good. Out of the kings of Israel. Now you go over to the kings of Judah and you go down through. Asa was the first good king. And there was Rehoboam, which was Solomon's son. Started it all out. Then there was Abijah, bad king. Rehoboam was a bad king. Then Asa was a good king. Jehoshaphat, good king. Jehoram, bad king. Ahaziah, a bad king. Athaliah, a bad king. And then Joash, good king. Amaziah, good king. Azariah, good king. Jotham, good king. Goes on down through Ahaz, bad king, Hezekiah, good king. So, you know, and it goes on down through there. And again, it shows you, I listed, you know, put a G and a B, the bad one and a good one. So there was a lot worse bad ones, a lot more bad ones than they really were good ones. So again, getting back to verse 13 here, Proverbs 16, verse 13. Let me get back for
If you're a selfish leader, ultimately it's going to bring you down.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, an ungodly leader too, because it generally just, you know, they destroyed themselves.
Sure.
Really did. Verse 13, it's abomination 12 for kings to commit wickedness, for the throne is established by righteousness. Now, verse 13, righteous lips are the delight of the kings, and they love him that speaketh right. That's what verse 13 has to say. Kings should take pleasure in honesty. In honesty, probably you could paraphrase that. Or righteous lips, they take pleasure in that. They should love those that speak right in doing that. David was probably a pretty good example of that. David was in his leadership. And you know, other ones were that way. So again, it's another proverb kind of gearing toward that. Kings should take pleasure in honest or righteous lips. I couldn't help but to think of, you know, every time we have a president, they appoint all of these cabinet leaders and all of these different people. And, you know, you would think that honesty and all of that would be, you know, one of the high priorities. The words good character and all of these things. And so you almost see a little bit of that in that. Verse 15 here, verse 14. The wrath of a king is as messengers of death. And that's a pretty true statement in that particular time period of the history of the nation of Israel. The wrath of the king. Because my. You know, they could just speak the word. It's almost, you know, it just gets overwhelming sometimes when you read that Old Testament, you read that period of history, you know, just the cruelty and the things that would occur. I mean, their words, they spoke it, and someone was just executed, period. That's just the way it was. Just like Herod had John the Baptist beheaded, you know, just called his wife there. You know, they wanted his head on a platter. And that just occurred. So just a terrible old situation. But as you read the history of kings, you see the truth of this particular proverb. You see the wrath of a king. A wise man will try to pacify or appease the king. It's what probably the thought that Solomon is bringing out. The wrath of a king is a messenger of death, but a wise man will pacify it. So, you know, the old guillotine or the sword there, man, you try to do all you can to please that king. And even, you know, when they had signed something or put their signet on something, you know, that was just almost unbreakable. When you read the book of Esther, you know, it's kind of neat how she was suddenly made queen, that, you know, she was not afraid to go in and probably jeopardize her own life to stand up for her own people, to try to get that reversed. What old Mordecai, I believe, had tried to, you know, get the Jewish people wiped out. And so, again, Haman, Mordecai was her uncle. And, you know, or I believe it was kind of like her uncle. So, again, you know, the story there. They had tremendous power. They really did authority to do whatever they wanted to do. So, verse 15 here. Maybe we'll get through the kings. In the light of the king's countenance, in the light of the king's countenance is life, and his favor is as of a cloud of latter rain. Probably goes on again a little bit with pacifying. The friendly countenance of a king can mean life. In other words, if the king's happy, everybody's happy. They'll live. That's what they'll do. It's probably the thought being, you know. Because, man, this dude could, you know. So, again, it's kind of interesting what Solomon is saying. It's almost like much needed rain that comes when clouds arise. In other words, a friendly countenance means life. So doesn't this latter rain that they so depended on. It meant life to them, is what it meant. So there you go, a happy king. A happy king could mean life. That's what it could mean.
About 3 weeks ago, it was the Friday night before our men's fellowship. We had what I call a friendly rain that night. It rained all night long. It was gentle. It wasn't wind blowing. It was raining straight down. And that's the kind of rain, you know, kind of image.
Gives life.
That gives life and is looked forward to. You
Yep.
know, it's
Absolutely.
a blessing.
Absolutely.
You know, the favor of a king for them.
Sure. Sure. That happy countenance and the king being life happy. Man, everything was going well, you know. Meant life is what it meant. And probably even in the sense of maybe, you know, not being in wars or fighting or whatever in that way. So anyway, anybody got anything on these kings? That was 4 or 5 verses that kind of, you know, reflected upon them. More maybe so to the culture of that particular day, but again, there are principles in there that maybe is still, you know. I know even in, maybe in family situations, if the head of the household is happy, everybody else can be happy. You know what I'm saying? And maybe even in our government official, I don't know. But if there's not anything, we'll look at verse 16 here. We got a few more minutes. How much better is it to get wisdom than gold? And this again is repetitious, really. I thought, you know, back in chapter 2, chapter 3, my lands, it personifies even wisdom. Even, you know, personifies it as a woman or a, you know, and again, drives home that same point. Just what value that is in life. And I think verse 16 is probably carrying that thought. It's kind of going back to that emphasis again that is put on wisdom. And it's just throughout this book. The opening chapter, it kind of Proverbs, these wisdoms is personified. Chapter 2:20 as a woman, the value in chapter 3 again through verses 13 through 19. Here in 16, wisdom is much better than gold. If one chooses to get understanding, it's even better than silver in that way. So I don't know. I think the more, I mean, I've dealt with people and maybe I've been a little, I'll kind of try sometimes in talking to people, I'll kind of try to see if they have any knowledge of God's Word. Maybe that's not, but I've done that a lot of times. And it's kind of disheartening to just how little knowledge that people have. And you know, when I think of wisdom and understanding from a Proverbs point of view, I'm thinking in a spiritual way. You know, there's a lot of wisdom in our world. There's a lot of understanding in our world. These people that works for, you know, down at Cape Canaveral, NASA, all of these individuals, some of them is, you know, so brilliant in so many ways. And there is so much knowledge in this America that we're a part of, and even not only America, but Japan. Think of Japan, the knowledge and the wisdom that has come out of that country. You know, all of these watches, and just think of the knowledge and wisdom that's even in China today. But I'm talking, like I say, when I think we have to keep this within the text, when it's talking about wisdom and understanding, something that's more precious than silver or gold. That's wisdom and understanding that we get in a spiritual way. And that again is something we don't, yes, education sure helps us if we study theology or whatever. But that all starts when we're willing to start a walk of faith with the Lord and have Christ come in our hearts and our lives. And just like Proverbs says, the fear even of the Lord, it's a starting point for it. It's the beginning of wisdom in life. So again, I think the thought being there, that how much better it is to get wisdom and gold, to get understanding, rather to be chosen, or understanding rather than to be chosen than silver. So if these, and it probably goes to a lot of choices in life, what we make. Some people is very, very smart politically. They're very smart politically. I know a guy from DuPont, he writes in the Parkersburg paper, and I talk to him periodically. He's very, very intelligent politically. I mean, he can stand up and talk to any government official, and I don't know, they must just be on the computer all the time or something, getting all these statistics and things, dealing with our government. I'm glad there's people that way, that can do that. But again, it's just another example of wisdom and understanding. So you can be thankful that you have a little hunger in your heart, for godly wisdom and for godly understanding. Because boy, oh boy, there's such a value to that. And that's such a needed thing in America today. It really, really, really is. It's such a needed thing. So, like I say, here it's, wisdom is more valuable than gold. Boy, it's repetitious in here. And if you choose to get understanding, better than silver. Better than silver. They're just always on that TV wanting you to buy gold. Want you to buy gold. I don't know. And there's a push on this silver now. Want you to buy silver. And for some reason or other, they're saying that's going to give you security. Because, they're promoting that in, with our $17 trillion debt or whatever that we are. And, there's going to be a big collapse or fall of that. But I don't know if there's a big collapse or fall. You can sit around with a whole ton of that gold. I don't know what you're going to do with it. If you ever think of it that way, I don't know. So again, there's a big push on that. I remember back in the early '60s when I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky. That's where they got the gold back down there. I followed that down there at Fort Knox. They had that vault. Of course, they don't have near enough gold in there to even think of covering the debt or anything. But anyway, understand. So can't put a value. Verse 17, the highway of the upright is to depart from evil. He that keepeth his way preserveth his soul. He that keepeth his way. Other words, probably paraphrasing, righteous living is a safeguard. It's kind of a safeguard. It's a highway. It's a highway. Other words, a highway is what it's of the upright is to depart from evil. And Christ kind of taught a broad way that leads to destruction, straight and narrow way that leads to life. And boy, there's just such a contrast. If you guard your way, you will preserve your soul and your life. The highway of the upright, it's a win-win situation. It's a win-win situation not only in a personal way, but even in a public way. It really, really is. All these daggone people, they'll get to drinking and carrying on and get drunk and get out on the highway, and kill somebody. Go down an interstate the wrong way. been in those old situations. You know, you're out there, and you know, it's a broad way, it's a destructive way to not only kill yourself, but hurt and damage maybe a whole bunch of other people in doing that. So again, this highway of the upright, or this, boy, it's a win-win situation. It really is. It is the highway of the upright is to depart from evil, but he that keepeth his way. Verse 18, we'll quit here because it's about 2 or 3 minutes. But pride there, you know, everybody knows that. It's like that Geico commercial. Everybody knows that verse. Everybody knows that. Pride goes before destruction. Haughty spirit before a fall. That's pretty good. I wrote in the Bible a long time ago, pride, I wrote this. Pride, it's a 5-letter word with I in the middle. P-R-I-D-E. I in the middle. Old pride. I'll tell you one thing. That's what happened to that old angels there. You know, when you go over and read in Isaiah 14, you know, that's what happened. They was expelled and cast out. Because, you know, Isaiah it's kind of neat. I read that a day or so ago there, because Isaiah 14 and almost all Bible scholars believe, you know, this is how Satan come about. How he come about. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cast down to the ground, which didst weaken the nation? For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend up into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of congregation beside the north. I will ascend above the heights of the cloud. I'll be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Lucifer, I'll read you a little footnote or two from Henry Morrison. Lucifer means shining one, and is rendered day star in some translation. This is the only time it occurs in the Bible, but clearly seems intended as a name for Satan, and has been so used throughout history. Above the stars are eventually angels, although Lucifer had a throne as God's anointed cherubim. Ezekiel 28:14. He aspired to reign over all of God's holy angels, all of whom have been created to serve God and to become ministers to those who will be heirs of salvation. Lucifer desired not only to rule over the angels, but to be like God himself, no doubt ultimately inspiring to displace God. This absurd ambition on the part of a created being, thinking himself capable of defeating his own Creator, can only be rationally understood if Satan did not really believe that God had created him. This is his early awareness. That is, his earliest awareness would be in the watery cosmos of the primeval deep. And his only knowledge that he had been created was God's Word for him. So he could have chosen to doubt God's Word and to believe instead that both he and God were somehow involved out of these waters. This is Henry Morrison. Thus, Satan or Lucifer was the first evolutionist, is what he's kind of saying. The root of all subsequent sin in doubting God's revealed Word. Again, it says here in this Isaiah vision, which focused upon Satan in Isaiah, returns to the human king of Babylon, who had been possessed by Satan, and his reception by the other dead kings as they greet him in hell. So he said because of his rebellion, Satan was expelled from this exalted position in the angelic host and will eventually be cast into that bottomless pit. However, he evidently persuaded a third of the angels to follow him, Revelations 12:3-9. They must also have chosen to believe either in their own evolution or else that Lucifer had made them. Ever since they had served as his demonic hierarchy, they seemed to deceive men and lead them away. So again, you know, pride was the whole issue. And it was a huge issue that brought Satan into existence. And it's a huge issue yet today. And you know, like the proverb is saying, pride leads to so many downfalls or destruction. It got Satan cast down. You know, haughty means arrogance, what it means, or loftiness or pride. So pride and haughtiness leads to destruction or a fall. Okay. Anybody got anything they want to say on that verse or any of the others? We'll stop right there. Okay, if there's not anything, we'll have us a little word of prayer. Father, we thank you again. Thank you for your word. Thank you, Lord, for the way that it reveals to us. Pray, Lord, that we might continue our walk of faith, just to trust you. We don't always have to understand all things, Lord. We know, Father, the understanding that you've given us is all we need to receive your Son, Jesus Christ, to receive this free gift of salvation. Thank you for those that have gathered here this evening. Thank you, Lord, that there was a time in their hearts and lives that they seen their need for Christ. So help us, Lord, again to continue to try to uphold you and to try to live a life that always reflects Christ to others. Please bless our time now this evening as we again have our business meeting. We always thank you, Lord, for what you've entrusted with us, and we always pray for wisdom, Lord, in handling that in the right way. So please bless that time, I pray, in Christ's name.